Last week I began to, I was preaching. Wow, what a service last week. I've never preached before on Ruth and Boaz. And so it was all off the cuff, so to speak. And so God was just moving in here. And so, and yeah, that's Charlotte's baby, but it'll be all right. she just don't want to do children's church yet, but she'll get along. She'll get with it. So, you know. In the middle of, yeah, you've got to keep trying. Last week as we were ending up our series, Blessed, God began to deal with me, and in the middle of the sermon I had written some stuff. And y'all don't see all of my notes, y'all get to see the scriptures, but if you go online you can see all of the notes I actually have there. But in the middle of that sermon, there was a piece that I had written. I had written it. And God really began to deal with me in those verses or in that paragraph. And so I'm going to begin with that. And this is, if I had a title for this sermon, it would be What We Shall Be. Because last week I addressed that what's being the move of God. Actually, I've done that for several weeks now. You know, if you study in history, what you find is we were always the move of God. The people of God were always the move of God for that time. Think about it. The people of God were always the move of God. Always it was with somebody or some group or some prophet or some evangelist. Even in church history, even in what you find in America. Go back to Azusa Street. Study the revival of Pentecost. You find it started with an old black preacher that was blind in one eye, and he would actually put a shoebox on his head during services because all of it got scrambled and it would be hard for him to concentrate. He put a shoebox on his head. But the power of God fell in that place. It's always been a group of people. It's always been a group of people that said, we're ready for the next thing, whatever the next thing is, God. We're ready. We're tired of where we're at. We're done. It's great, but we're done. What's next? As great as this is, what's next? As great as this is, how are we going to change the world? As great as this is, what's next? So in the middle of that, God began to deal with me. He says, what we have been through has brought us to this point in our life. What we have seen has given us the ability to see the next thing. This move of God we are in has prepared us for the next move of God. And where we go from here is a matter of choice. I declare we are the next move of God. And if we are the next move of God, it will have to be, now pay attention, holiness without legalism. It will have to be grace without moral compromise. It will have to be peace that passes all understanding. Somewhere we've got to realize we are that move of God. Therefore, when God begins to deal with us about change in our life, then we must adapt. Now, here's the great thing about God. When we begin to realize that this holiness, we're going to take the first part of that. Holiness without legalism. That's what we're going to deal with today. Because can I ask you something? Has the church done much? Oh, we're here. Okay, please, I'm not taking away from anything that we've done. But don't you think if we serve the most powerful God in all of creation, that He loved us so much that He gave His Son, even though we were sinners and undone, don't you think we'd have more of an impact? I'm just speculating. What about Live Oak County? What about the drug addicted? Let's start there. What about teenage pregnancy? What about kids not finishing school? What about, and what about, and what about, and what about, and what about? Where do we address these issues? How do we address these issues? How has the church addressed them in the past? And is that working? Serious questions. Because you see, when we begin to realize that it's more than just you getting your blessing. It's more than, fill my truck, Lord, I'll back it up, Lord. Now I know that's a little different than what you normally hear. Some of us just want more than others, all right? You can have a cup if you want to. I want a truck. Give me a truckload. But in the midst of everything that we do, can I ask you something? Does it not always focus on what I need from God? Does it not? Think about it. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's a thing wrong with that. I'm just wondering, when is it going to quit being about us? That baby right there? Now see, that baby doesn't realize it, but I've preached with that baby in my arms before. And she didn't scream or nothing. Just saying. And I didn't pull no punches either. I screamed and hollered and the whole bit, and she laid right there. But that baby right there, everything is about her. What'd she do when she didn't want to go to children's church? Ma! Right. I got her attention. But what do? When it doesn't go our way? Oh God! God, hey, do you see me, God? What I'm going through. You know why we do that? We don't think God's paying attention, maybe. Why do we pray that way? We've been taught to. We become desperate. We become agitated. We become drifting in the midst of the storm. And don't we cry? I wonder, though. I wonder. There's not a group of people that God's not beginning to raise up that it's not about them. You know why? It's shifting. Because you see, what I have found in my almost 5 years of marriage, October will be 35 years. What I have found is my wants and desires have changed. You know why? Because what she wanted to do. You see, somewhere in our life it's got to be to a point to where when we fall in love with God, we fall in love with God and everything that's, we struggle with sin. Why do you struggle with sin? Why? Think about it. Why do you struggle with sin? Oh, the old man. That's our excuse. The old man just keeps rising up. I mean, I can go on and on. The list is long. We make lots of excuses. But if you really want to know, there's only one real reason. Only one. And that is, we've yet to develop a relationship of love with God. Because can I tell you, the more I love her, the less I want to do things to hurt her. That's simple. I change my thinking. Why? Because I'm in love. Oh, fell in love. Love's a dangerous thing. And normally way expensive. I'm just saying. Her and her mama came by. Had no idea I was going to preach this way. Her and her mama came by the house. Just visiting, they said. I think her mother had a plan. But anyway, they came by the house. We were living in Campwood. They lived in Uvalde. Dropped by the house. Sat in there. We talked, visited, and all of those things. Of course, as custom is, I don't know about y'all, but our custom was, when guests leave, you walk them out. So we walked them to the car. They were driving this old Volvo. That was an interesting piece of equipment in itself. We got them in the car. Mother and Dad and myself were there. Bye. And they left. We turned around to go in the house. My dad, as he often would, put his arm around me to hold me back. Didn't say anything, just kind of held me back a little bit. Mother walked on. My dad said, boy, when he said that, I knew something was up. Boy, you ought to think about dating that one. No, I hadn't thought about that. I'd known Christine since she was 8. We went to 7, 8, something. We went to the Born Again Barn. Born Again Barn in Sabernal. We were singers. That's what we were. We had an evangelistic team. Woo-hoo! And we were singing at the Born Again Barn. And they came in. My father-in-law is a pastor there in Uvalde. Has been a pastor for 40-something years. They came in. I met her then. We held revivals for their church. Never thought about it. Till my dad said, boy, you ought to date that one. Now, my dad didn't make many suggestions like that, so me being the obedient son that I am, unlike somebody else in this family, but anyway, I mean, you know, me being the smart child, I asked her out, and we fell in love. My dad told me, said we had our own business. We did water wells. Well, we tried to make a business out of it, you know. So my dad told me one evening we came in from work, and he said, son, you either have to marry her, ask her to marry you, or get out of that relationship because you're not worth a dime right now. Because your mind's not in the game. So you know what I did? I asked her to marry me. And a week later we moved to Colorado. Fell in love. Run up a $400 a month phone bill. This is back when we didn't do cell phones. Remember those times? Some of you kids won't, but remember those times? No cell phones, no unlimited long distance. $400 a month. And you know what? We didn't talk hardly. We just stayed on the phone. Why? It's in love. A lot has changed. The more I fall in love. Because see, I really didn't know what love was. And in 5 years I'll realize today I really didn't know what love was. Because every day. But you know what? It's a choice. Now I'm really going to hurt your feelings now. This, oh, you can't help who you fall in love with. Give me a break. Let me tell you something. You don't want rotten fish, don't fish in that kind of pond. If you don't fish in it, you don't catch nothing like that. That's simple. It's not complicated. Oh, well, the heart wants what the heart wants. Well, get the heart out of there. Put it somewhere else. Why? Because it's about relationship. Now, let's flip that to God. Same thing. You know why we battle with sin? We still don't know who we are. You know why we battle with sin? We still think the old man is in control. You know why we battle with sin? Because we haven't changed our mind yet. We've not won on this battlefield. And this is the biggest battlefield you're ever going to win on. Right here. You win it here, nothing out here matters. If you win it here. If you don't win it here, then everything out here matters. And your life will be just like this. Up, down, up, down, up, down. No stability. No ability to change anything. Why? Because you still hadn't won up here. You're still battling between the two. Now, I don't know. Christians are powerful people. Do you understand that? You're the most powerful thing in the world right now. Do you understand that? The God in you makes you the most powerful thing here. And you know what you do? You raise the dead on a regular basis. You raise that old man over and over and over. You bring that rascal back to life. Even though it's been crucified. Man, you speak life into that thing. And it comes up, and you battle right here. Well, this is the way I was raised. This is what happened to me when I was young. This is the way I think. I can't do that. I'm not worthy. I can't be that. Right here. Right here. Oh, you know the buzzard. I'm not going to bring that up again. Nope, not me. I can't do that. Well, Pastor, this is what I want to do, but I don't. I'm just going to do it kind of out there. No, sorry. God is sucking you in. And guess what? You're going to find yourself right out there in front. Now, what you do with it's up to you. It's not about what you see. It's not. Sorry. Not about miracles. It's not about that. It's not about so much what you hear. Oh, but what you hear is good. It's about what you do with it. I can preach to you every Sunday, you're worth something, but if you don't change your mind, you're always going to be unworthy. I can preach to you every single day. You are redeemed. You are holy. You are righteous. You are complete. I can tell you that over and over and over. And until you change the way you think, it's not going to do any good. Holiness without legalism. Find a set of verses of scriptures in 1 Peter, first chapter. I believe it starts at 10, doesn't it, Shay? 13. Wherefore, gird up the loins of your mind. I don't mean to be so vulgar by any means. But do you realize what it's saying here is gird up the reproductive place of your mind. What are you producing? Do you understand that? Gird up the loins of your mind. Gird up that reproductive ability. Why? Because that's what you think. Wherefore, gird up the loins of your mind. Be sober and hope to the end of grace, to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance. All that old way of thinking, guess what that is? Ignorance. Why? Because that's not what God said about you. Now, let me ask you something. God says you're holy. What do you say? Now remember what God said. Now what do you say? See, that's the difference. Somewhere what we say and what God says has to begin to align. You know why? Because when you begin to realize where you're from and what you're at, who you are in Christ, what you begin to realize is that I don't have to be legalistic. I, as a pastor, don't have to stand up here and tell you you're going to hell in a handbasket. Bless God, hallelujah, if you don't straighten up, and if you don't spit white, and if you don't walk right, and if you don't dip in that stuff, and chewing that stuff, and on and on and on the list can go. I can preach it all. It don't do no good. If you're going to dip snuff, you're going to dip snuff. Me telling you right or wrong, we all have our pet peeves, what we don't want what we don't want people to do. Look, I don't care. Just don't spit it in the floor. Don't bring a bottle in. If you can't swallow it, don't do it in here. I know I'm different. I know I am. Okay? You see, somewhere we've got to realize that when I rise up as God has called me, then I realize I don't have anything to do with it. I am holy because He's holy. I am righteous because He is righteous. I am complete because He made me complete. I am everything I need to be right now because He said so. Now what do you say? You see, when you come to that point in your life, when you look at the world, we don't have to be legalistic. You know why the world doesn't want what we've got? Because we constantly tell them, instead of the love of Christ, we tell them how they're going to have to change. Well, you know, when you get saved, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. You can't drink and you can't all of this stuff, and the list goes on and on and on. Don't we tell them that? Well, oh, salvation is free, but bless God, all this other stuff comes along with it. You know, you ever been in one of those deals? This is free, but that's what we do. When we look at the world, we want to try to clean them up. Look, it's not my job to clean you up. Either God's going to do it or He's not going to do it, and it's not up to me. We went to a church in Kentucky one time. They had a ruler on the side of the door as you walked in. You know what they were measuring? Skirt length. Betcha. My bunch had to go change clothes before we went in. All the way down there. Guess what? I had to wear long sleeves. You didn't come in the house of God. Those short sleeves on. What difference does God make? Why does He care? He doesn't care if my arms are covered or uncovered. Now, I want you to be decent. Please don't show more than you need to show in the house of God. I'll put it to you this way. You know, merchandise that's for sale has got to be shown. So, you know, think about that. I know, I'm sorry. I'm different. All right, I'm different. But you know what? It's not up to me. I'm not the judge of your life, nor I am the judge of that world out there. Here's the cool part. All I have to do is love them. That's all. That word in Peter, keep going. As obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance, but as He which hath called you is holy, be holy. Doesn't say, please try to be holy. That's not what it says. If you do this and this and this and this, you'll be holy. That's not what it says either. What it says is be holy. Because He's holy. Now, I have a question for you. God. Where does God live? Right here, right? We accept Jesus Christ into our personal life, right? Right here. In our heart. Isn't that what we say? In our heart. You think He's going to live in anything unholy? Ow. But you don't know what I did last night. You know what? You're not going to make God unholy. Remember last week when I talked about Peter and the sheet that came down? And God turned to him and said, don't you dare call anything unclean that I've called clean. Why is it important that we know who we are? Because once you know who you are, we can change that world out there. Because we're going to realize that I am. Oh, now see, it's easy for us to say, Jesus is the light of the world. Yep. Guess what? You are the light of the world. Where do you think He's going? You think He's just going to go, He's just going to glow out there somewhere? You know, the Word actually says, if they tell you I'm here or I'm there, don't believe them. Don't believe it. You know why? Because He's right here. Who? Guess who's supposed to be glowing? Now, I know some of you think you glow, but, you know, come on. Somewhere in our relationship with Jesus Christ, we come to a point that realize that I am the light of the world. Not because I'm holy, but because He's holy that's in me. And therefore, I change everything and every circumstance. And when I walk into it, it changes. When are you going to believe that? Right. Because until you believe it, it doesn't change nothing. Be. What are you? A human doing or a human being? You're a human being. Not any of you go, oh, I want to be a human. Right? Now, maybe some of you got more than one personality, but you being a human being is a human being. Do you strive to be a human being? Do you work at it every day? Or did you just born right into that? Oh, I know I'm tugging on you. I know I am. But there's a reason for that. Because the move of God, that holiness without legalism, is not for in here. You realize that? The move of God that we are is not for in here. Sorry. Not for the church. It's not. The move of God's not for us. It's for them. It's for us to take Jesus to the world. That's the move of God. If you're looking for anything, are we going to have great services? Yes. This is a place of encouragement. This is a place of empowerment. This is a place of healing. This is all of those things. But the move, it's right out there.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Holiness without legalism. When you realize who, all right, going to use the baby again. Mostly because I see the church as that. We're not mature yet. Why? Because we're still bickering and fighting. Why? Because we're still afraid to go out there in the world. Why? We're still full of fear. Here. Why? Because we still don't trust that God's going to take care of things. Because if you really trusted that, why are you panicking? Why are you freaked out? Why are you worried? Why are you full of doubt and fear and discouragement and despair? Isn't the God you serve big enough? Yes. Still here. So, let me ask you something about that little child. We don't at any time go, you need to be an adult. Well, okay, yeah, sometimes. Hush, Charlotte. I'm trying to make a point here. Yes, we want them to grow into adulthood, but we don't. Look, do you expect that baby to keep a checkbook? Do you expect that baby to make those kind of... No! You don't expect that. Why do we judge people? When are we going to come to the point that we realize that the love of Christ has brought us to a place that I am holy? And because I am holy, such as I have, give I thee. Oh, have you ever thought about this? Not one person that got healed in the New Testament until later on was saved. Think about that. Every person that Jesus healed, they wasn't saved. Every single one. He raised the dead. Not saved. Do you think that the crippled man beside the gate, beautiful, that was sitting there begging for alms, had given his life to Christ? No! He wasn't saved. Well, you think you got a monopoly on that? When are we going to realize? We're supposed to change the world. You know what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to heal them. Yes. See, we're quick to pray for them church folks. But bless God, that world, they got exactly what they deserve. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. We'll know when we get it right. We'll know. Tell me how. You want me to tell you how? It's when we look at that lost and dying world and our heart cries.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Because they don't know the love that we feel.
Yes.
We'll know we've got it right when we're more concerned about them than we're concerned about the church house. Oh, I want a beautiful place, and I want all of those. Look, I want all of those things, but you know what? They need healing. They don't need your judgment.
Yes. Right.
Why doesn't the world want what we've got? Well, let me ask you this. What do you think the picture of Jesus is that we've shown them over the last few years? What picture is that? We've got your preachers on television. They don't agree. I don't know if you've realized that or not. They really don't agree on a lot. They really don't. Depending on who you listen to, everybody's got their own opinion. Everybody's got their own, you know. Now, I'm going to hurt your feelings. Quit listening. Well, brother, let me tell you something. Let me be very clear. You can't eat from this table that tells you you're worthy, and then eat from another trash table that tells you you're unworthy. You can't keep doing it. You know why? Because you're going to continually battle. I say one thing, they say something else. Well, I thought we spoke. No. No. It's not because I'm such a great preacher. Please understand that. It's not. But I will tell you something. There's not many churches preaching the same message we're preaching. Be careful with what you listen to. Because not all of it that's labeled Christian is grace. There's a lot of law out there. Be careful with what you listen to. Because not all of it, just because they label it Christian, is good. Great example. If you don't send us some money, we're going off the air. Then go off the air. Now, I don't mean to be ugly, but let me ask you something. Minister, don't you think the God you serve is big enough to move on hearts people to send it in? I don't mind you mentioning it. Don't beg for my money. Because apparently you don't believe. You have to beg us to give. Nope. Done. That's why we don't take up an offering. That's why the offering plate's in the back. You know why? I am through begging. Either God is God or He's not. He's either going to prove Himself or He's not. Yes. It's that simple. What about your God? You know, there was a prophet that stood up and said, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have a challenge. Bring us out a cow on both sides. You do your thing, I'll do mine. And the God that answers with fire be God. How about that? Are you willing to put your God on the line? Think about it. It's a death match. It's really what it was. 400 to 1. What about your God? I am tired of us displaying God in here and not out there. If the God we serve in here is really God, then He needs to be God right out there. That means, now, look, we don't mind hugging on one another, praying for one another in here. Why don't we do it out there? Well, holiness without legalism. You know what that means? I don't have to judge. All I have to do is realize who I am. Because if I realize who I am, there ain't a devil in hell can do anything about it. There's not a situation or circumstance I can't handle. And if the storm blows, I will walk on the water. And if not, I'll swim. Well, if God don't move just this way, then it must not be God. Really? What if God's got this whole other plan? I know in the Old Testament the guy said, all right, God, if this is you, I'm going to put this fleece on the ground. Tonight, everything wet around it, but the fleece is dry. Okay, God, if this is you. If this is you, if this is you. Oh, now I know I'm hitting on you. If this is you, God, my sheep will know my voice. Blah, blah, blah. Ooh, but if this is you, God, well, okay. Ground was all wet, fleece was dry. But that wasn't good enough. Oh, see, some of y'all are that way. If this is you, God, oh, well, okay. If this is you, God, well, oh, okay. If this is you, God. Next night, all right, God, the fleece be wet, ground to be dry. That's what he said. So guess what? Next morning, fleece was wet, ground was dry. They wrung water out of the fleece. That is Old Testament. And we still use that today. They didn't have access to God the way we have access to God. Quit going. If this is you, God, look. Just do. All right? You know how long you've hesitated? If this is you, God. If this is you, God. Will you please just step out? If it's not God, He'll move it around till it is and get you in the right spot. It's that simple. If you don't think it's God, come to me. I'll tell you. I can tell you. It's easy, but you need to hear the voice of God. Of course, a lot of times you don't want... You know, I was thinking I've fallen in love with this man. Filthy, unchristian, out there in the world, drinking and cussing and blah, blah, blah. And you went and fell in love with him, and now you want me to bless that? No, thank you. So if you come to me, I'm going to tell you the truth. Ask some of those people I've been counseling with. I don't cut you any slack. Don't be stupid. You know, it amazes me the relationships we get in the middle of. You knew better when you was getting in the middle of it. And you know what I found? Now, I don't know why I'm off on this, but you know what I found? I found if I don't tell you what you want to hear, you'll find somebody else to tell you until you find that person that tells you what you want to hear, and then they've heard from God. I've got a preacher friend of mine. Wanted to take this church, so he went to the man over him that he submitted his life to. I'm thinking about taking this church. What do you think? Oh, they'll kill you. They'll kill you. They'll just run you in the ground. It's not God. Don't do it. He went and found him somebody else and told him, well, they just knew in Christ, and you just go ahead and take that church, and you'll be able to do something with it. Now, let me ask you something. He went and took the church. Think that's going to turn out all right? But we do the same thing. We do. So here's the deal. Holiness. You ever want to deal with the issue of holiness in your life? Read Romans. Because this is what Paul does in Romans. Here's the law and what it says, but this won't work. So here's God, and this will work, but here's the law. It won't work. Here's God. It'll work. All through the book of Romans. That's what he does. You know, people go, well, they quote verses of Scripture out of Romans out of context, and you know what they've done? They've done this when Paul's going about the law. They snatch that one little verse of Scripture out there, and that's what they apply to their life. What about all of this other stuff at the end where Paul goes, but it's not for you, because you have Christ. See, we don't do that. Holiness. Now, let me be very clear. You are holy. Right now. If you've accepted Jesus Christ into your life, you're holy. You don't get dirty again. You are sin resistant. It splashes, it doesn't get on you. Why? Because do you think God's going to live in an unholy vessel? Not happening. Now, can you become unsaved? Yes, you can. But it takes a lot more than just splashing it on you. You've got to quit believing. That's the only way. If that's what it took to get you, you've heard me say it over and over and over again. I don't know why I say it over and over again. Maybe we're still not getting it. Maybe I'm not getting it. I don't know. But I'm going to say it one more time. The only way you got saved was in belief. Therefore, the only way to be unsaved is unbelief. That's it. That's all. Now, sin will take you to unbelief eventually, but you're holy up until that point to where you quit believing. Holy, holy, holy. And then, yeah, you're not holy. Why? Because you don't believe. You are righteous. You are holy. You are redeemed. You are complete right now. But, Pastor, I don't feel that way. I know. You know why? Still fighting it right here. Every day. Right here, still fighting the battle. I don't know. Am I? Am I not? Am I? Am I? Loves me? Loves me not? Loves me? Loves me not? Loves me? Loves me not? Loves me? This is me. Loves me? Loves me? Loves me? Loves me? Loves me no matter what I do? Because He loved me before I gave my life to Him. Loves me anyway. Loves me in spite of. Loves me because of. Loves me. Loves me. Loves me. Therefore I am worthy. 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 Therefore I am holy. 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 Therefore I am righteous. And the list goes on and on. How dare you call unclean what God has called clean? When we change our mind here, then we can live holy without legalism. But not until then. Because until then, it's all about what you do. And so guess what? If you give and somebody else doesn't, you must be more holy than them. You go to church, listen, none of y'all go to church as much as I go. But guess what? Y'all are still just as holy as I am. Listen, follow me around. We go to church a lot in my family. Not only do we go to church a lot, we spend a lot of time in the Word. We spend a lot of time. Why? Because I'm a pastor. But but it's not because of that. You know what the coolest thing is that happens in my life? Oh, I love my grandkids. I love my wife. I love all of that stuff. I do, passionately. But when my God talks to me, everything else pales. When my God speaks to me, shows me something in the Word. You know why I read the Word? Because I know if I'll keep reading, it will light up. You ever seen those on the movies? You know, they're going through, and then all of a sudden this lights up. It's because that's the next thing I need. And when He speaks to me, it's nothing like it. He is the lover of my soul. Maybe one day I'll preach the Song of Solomon to you. Can't do it in one service. The Song of Solomon is a passionate love story. If you read that with spiritual eyes, you see that the lover of her soul was passionately after her. And when she thought she wasn't worthy and her skin was the wrong color and she spent too much time out in the field and she was dirty and she was all of those things, he still wanted her. He loved her. Oh, maybe one day I'll preach that. He loves you. Not only loves you, but believes in you and wants you. You know, we have that book out. It's a great book. We've had that pastor at our church in Cedartown, or that preacher, the one who God Chasers, wrote that book. God Chasers, Tommy Tenney. Had him at the church, met the man. Great, powerful man of God. But as hard as you're chasing God, God is chasing you harder. And when you don't chase God, He's still chasing you. Why am I holy? Because He said so. That's it. And if that's not enough, then you need to serve another God, because apparently your God's not powerful as mine is. Because when my God says you're holy, that settles it right there.